Hello everybody and welcome back to another video here on my channel. And in today's video we are doing yet another reading vlog, trying to tackle my October TBR in this video. For my October TBR, if you have not seen, I actually picked my TBR from my 25 and 2025 list, and I'm trying to accomplish that list in the next 2 months or potentially 3, as long as I can finish it before the end of the year. I have read the chunkiest one. Thankfully, I'm almost finished with it. I think I have about 40 pages with, so I'll be finished with it today. It will not be in this video, don't worry. However, I did want to start this video because I wanted to do like a kind of lazy or just relaxing reading vlog, not too much going on, and I wanted to start off this video with me actually picking up a book instead of me trying to finish a book. Without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the reading vlog. Originally, when I first tried starting this vlog this morning, I thought about taking you guys with us, or with me and my son, to the library. However, I did not do that. I didn't record it all in there, and also I was more helping out my son on the computer with ABC Learning. I only read about 5 pages, 6 pages actually is where I stopped at. My first book for this reading vlog is actually going to be The White Witch Doctor. This is an older book that I got from, in a way, like inherited when my neighbor, an older neighbor of mine when I was younger, passed away, and I got a lot of her books. I still have a lot more that I could go back and get, but for on my shelf, which this is my older book collection for the most part, besides like the Nancy Drews and Hardy Boys, so many of these books that I've read from the early 1900s to about like the 60s, I think is the newest of her books that she had, I really loved. So I did put this on my 25 and 25 list, and this was one of 2 of my older books that was on that list. This is the only one I've yet to tackle. I don't know anything about it. It's one of those that I just kind of go in blind with most books, but especially something like this, I'm not going to read too much into it. I'm just going to jump on in. It's definitely a book I want to finish, so no questions about that. Like I said, I'm 6 pages in. We haven't really got anywhere. Like, I feel like I shouldn't update just yet. It's only about 260 pages total. It's fairly short, which we love that. I did want to go ahead and start off by saying what book I will be reading first in this vlog. However, I want to also talk about, since we did go to the library, and I always look through their books, their VHS tapes, their puzzles, everything that they have for sale, and I think paperbacks are 50 cents, hardcovers are $1, and also they gave me like 8 free dollars, like little coupon dollars, when I first got mine and my son's library card. So I got 2 books this time. I'm only adding to my TBR though, my physical TBR, 1 book, which is great. I did pick up this for $1. It's Nicholas Sparks' See Me. This is the hardcover. I do have a paperback around here. It's probably like this one. However, I love the hardcovers more, and for $1, I mean, I'm just gonna switch it out. It's not like I'm adding to my bookshelf besides thickness, because also I can't stack it up on the paperback anymore, but I think this was one of my favorite books so far from him. I don't know why. I think it was because almost like murder and a mystery plot in this book was going along with like a subplot of romance. It almost felt like. It felt so much better, and I still, I think, like his books, but for the most part, I'm not really a romance reader, and I've never really been, but here lately I just really don't care about romance, and I hate like trying to force myself to read some romance books, and that even applies to his books. However, the feeling that I get with this book, I could right now reread this book and put off some of my other books that I haven't even started yet. That's how much I like this book. So I did pick this one up for $1, and then for 50 cents, another Colleen Cobble book. I am so sorry. This one's Alaska Twilight. I've never heard of this. I think I've seen it in the library, but it's like a newer copy, a weird copy. It feels a lot weirder than all her other books I have, but you know what? I don't even care. It's a standalone. It's Colleen Cobble. She writes mysteries. She has God in her books. I'm gonna enjoy it. I'm not upset. And also, they're only like 200 to 300 pages, so fairly short. I'm gonna call this a win for 50 cents. I just wanted to come on here, just do a little tiny haul of what I picked up at the library, and also tell you guys what book I did start. And I'm going to wait for my husband to call me to come home and probably start on this book just a little bit, and then I will come update you today or tomorrow, hopefully when I'm around 50 to 100 pages. I'm gonna try and fit a lot of books in this vlog, try and tackle a lot, so I'm gonna try to also not talk so much, or have this vlog being like 40 minutes long, preferably. So I'm gonna try and update just a couple times per book. Hello, I want to do a little update. I do have a little bit of a news, or a really big update technically, on one book. I did start a second book. We'll get into that in a minute. First, I did go ahead and start White Witch Doctor, which you guys kind of seen a little, and I think I started this maybe like 3 or 4 days ago. It's been a while, and for the most part, because of the weekend, I have just mainly read like 2 pages a day, if that, and then gone to bed. We were loading up a bunch of scrap and taking that to the scrapyard, and we were just doing work all day long for probably the last like 3 days. So there wasn't much much time for reading, so I literally probably only read about 1 to 5 pages max a day. However, I am fairly close to page 100. I am on page 64 of this, and I realized that there is also a movie for this, so I might try and watch it afterwards. I think it came out in 56 or early 50s. I'm not 100% positive. However, there is a movie for this, and so far I'm enjoying the book. There's not much that's really went on. We are following a female named Ellen, I do believe her name is, and this is one of those stories where she's too old technically for her church or whoever in the community to send her over to be a missionary. So she decides to go through nursing and she becomes an RN, and that way she has an excuse to go over there. And they all kind of look at her like, oh, you're a little bit too old for this. Like, you don't have a husband. You're in your, I think it's 30s. They're kind of saying how she really should go find something to do, or maybe just be, can't remember the word it's called, but where you don't end up marrying and instead you dedicate your life to other things, but you're staying in the States. And instead she does actually go over to the Congo, and while she's there she learns a lot of new terms. She also understands that, hey, the mission, they don't really have a lot of money, and she comes, or she has a lot of money. So there are some things that she says that really irritates the another doctor there, because he's like, we make literally like $75 a year unless you have kids, and it's like $200 I think a year depending on how many kids you have and a wife, and I think he only makes that much, and on top of it the mission doesn't make that much, and they have to supply their own stuff. And so it's like she can afford it, but technically they can't afford it. So she's having to kind of go through with navigating what all she should or shouldn't say, I guess offend them or just irritate them in a way. And she's also learning a lot of things. She is becoming a doctor over there, and at first people don't really like her, but she's starting to kind of around 60 pages like have opinions turned about her, and they really respect her for the most part. And some of the people that she is helping over there, they really look up to her. Like, they purposely try and kind of injure themselves just to come get a band-aid from her. I mean, that's something, I think it's just like kids that do that. But then also, I can't remember the word that they said, but there's a word that they called her, and it means like they're giving their loyalty to her in a way. So she's coming along, and so far that's really all we've gotten, is just her settling down in the Congo and understanding some things. Like the first night she's there, they tell her like, oh, we have these nets in here, your whole house is made out of dung and something else, or mud and dung and something else. This is the reason you have this net here, is to catch bugs and stuff, especially when you sleep. And she actually wakes up to, I don't remember what kind of snake, but I think it's a python is what they said, and it's some kind of snake. So she runs out of the hut, and they're like, I've been here 10 plus years and I've never seen this. So it's a little bit funny, and I am enjoying this. Like, this is a very interesting read. When I pick it up and actually sit down and read it, I feel like it's very interesting, but I've just been so busy that I haven't sat down and wanted to read this, especially since there isn't an audiobook. I don't know what it is right now. I've been kind of enjoying audiobooks because when I'm really busy, I can just turn it on and just go, and this one I have to physically read. But I am, like I said, 60 pages into it, and I'm hoping today I could be 100 or so pages into it. I know that's not much. I have read a little bit today. Let me introduce you guys to the second book that I did pick up, which is of course from the same 25 and 25 list. It is actually The Last Song. I finally picked this up, and this is only because I had an audiobook available on Libby, and I went out yesterday, actually for the last 2 days, because went out really late and then the sun went down, so I couldn't even finish the first night I started mowing our front yard. I had to finish yesterday, go out and mow, and then do the backyard. So for 2 days I spent mowing a couple hours. I think I got about 6 hours in total of mowing, and about 8 hours into the audiobook because I have it on 1.3 speed. And this, I've seen the movie, I've never read this book. However, I think this is one of my favorite books from him, like getting up there. The Guardian is one of my favorites, See Me is one of my favorite, and then The Lucky One is the one that started it all with Nicholas Sparks, at least for me. And this book is, for the most part, just like the movie. I think they did a really good job with the movie, because anything that's been going on in this book, I can just picture it in the movie. For the most part, there are some things like all movie adaptations that they leave off. Overall, I'm just enjoying following our character, who she's a teenager, and her little brother go over to her father's house, who's actually on the beach, and they're from New York City, and she's kind of navigating, not so much living there, but because she's one of those teenagers that she doesn't necessarily smoke or do drugs or anything like that, but she is just, I don't know, going through a phase, let's just say, and she's skipping curfew. She doesn't really want to talk to her mom. She doesn't ever talk to her dad. Actually, they were estranged for a little bit, and then there's some other things going on, and we're following her as she's navigating slowly, coming around with her father. Like, her father's trying, and she's just like, hey, you know what, he's done all this. And I think for the main thing, which I'm not gonna spoil anything if you've never seen the movie or read this book, but there's something that happens that involves the police that her father is actually like, I believe you. And she's like, oh, why did you believe me when nobody else did? Why did you choose to believe me? And I think that was a big turning point for her, and now it's getting to the point where she has a lover, I'm gonna say, or like somebody she really enjoys, they're dating, but he's supposed to be going to college and he's also very wealthy, and so she's not really accepted into that family, at least by the mother. And we have this little dynamic with that, and then you have a little, not subplot, but a little thing that they kind of bond together on, or like came about together. They were together to watch these turtles at night, make sure that no raccoons would get them, and now they just hatched. I used to be far into this book. As of this morning, I was on page 224, 225, chapter 23, but I just finished chapter 30, and now I'm on 311, 310, and that is because I have been listening to the audiobook, like I said, the 2 days for mowing, and then today was actually because I was going through some of my photos and getting some stuff done for both YouTube and photography. So I sat there and listened to the audiobook all the way till chapter 31. And right now we just got to the point where I'm gonna say her and her brother end up finding out something about her father. And so now we have this dynamic of, oh, we don't have much left in the book and not necessarily much time that they're spending with their father because they gotta go back for, like, I think she's out of school, but later on the boy has to go back to school. And so we're losing out on the summer. They were there for the summer, but summer's kind of coming to an end, and there's some other reasons why things are coming to an end. I don't know. There's a lot going on that I really enjoyed this book. It's definitely just like the movie. I love the movie. This was a really good movie, in my opinion, in the early 2000s. I loved the actors and actresses that played in it. I felt like it was just an overall good movie. And I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's just because I grew up with it, so it's a little bit, not sentimental, but nostalgic, I guess I should say, in a way. But the story in particular, I definitely enjoy. I really love this cover in particular. And this is one of those that I think Nicholas Sparks did good, because you have like the subplot of romance, but you have this actual storyline, and of course there is some sad bits into it. But in this story specifically, there's also this, I'm gonna say, like, bad person or a little bit of bad group of people, and they are purposely trying to set up other people in the story, or purposely trying to ruin their lives in a way. So I like that dynamic, because not very often does his books have those. I feel like I've spoiled this whole book for me, and that's one reason I was like, I'll just listen to the audiobook. Like, yeah, I was busy, so I wanted something I could listen to, but at the same time, it's like, I've already seen this movie so many times that I just felt like I already knew, for the most part, what this book was going to be about. So we are, I think, like 70-something% through this book now. I only have, I think, like 100 pages. No, I don't even have 100 pages left. So that's great. And I have about 150 pages on the other book. So I'm sorry that I never introduced this book until now. And I'm also sorry that I've only listened to it on audio. So you're not really getting much like POV shots of me reading or anything like that. At least it's another book crossed off my list. That's all I really wanted, to be honest. I just want to tackle that list. I'm really trying hard to not get deterred every time that we get busy, not get upset that, hey, I'm not prioritizing reading because instead I'm helping others, or instead I'm out busy doing stuff that is constructive and much better than just sitting and reading. I'm trying to keep the positives in mind, and using an audiobook for a book that I already feel like I've seen or read, even though I haven't technically read it, I feel like is a good way to kind of stay positive and make up for all the lost time. I hope that makes sense. Most likely I will be finishing this book today or tomorrow, and then hopefully we will be finishing this in 2 days, if not 3 days. I don't want to spend too much time on this book. I don't like doing 2 books at once. I rarely do it. Definitely with this book, I do want to stick to it, and of course tackle it, because some of the reviews, which there's not much reviews because it is an older book, an unpopular book, when I went on Goodreads, so many people said about how, not in a way life-changing this book is, but how great this book turns out and how it made them feel. And so I'm really curious to get to that part, because already I'm just enjoying it, even though it's just a random book that I had on my shelf. good morning. I want to do an update on both of the books that I was reading, The Last Song and also The White Witch Doctor. Let's go ahead and start with The Last Song. If you guys seen my clips a couple days ago, I did finish The Last Song and I absolutely loved it. It was 5 stars. It's definitely one of my, I'm gonna say top 3 books from Nicholas Sparks. I have See Me and The Guardian pretty much as my top 2. This will now be in that top 3. And this book in particular really was just something that was almost like beautiful in a way. I don't say that very often, especially with books, because I don't know, I just found the story very interesting and I loved the characters. I love the character development, especially with our main character Ronnie. I loved in a way like the plot of this book and also just her with her father, and also in the end after something happens and her relationship towards her brother. She's always had like a great relationship with her brother, but I just feel like it got a little stronger in the end after something happened. And then you have her going through in a way like a heartbreak, and she's finding love, and she's also maturing in a lot of different ways. One way in particular is because she's more rebellious. There's something that happens to her that technically somebody lied and she was getting in trouble with the cops. So she is instead trying to tell the truth. She's just sitting there and just letting it kind of happen. She is like saying like, oh, you know, I didn't do this, but most people aren't going to believe her, especially with the past. She has one prior to her. So it's a little touch and go. Also, she's new to this area since she's just visiting her dad for the summer. But I feel like she took that whole scenario, that whole situation really maturely, and I just really enjoyed that. And then also like the subplot of you have this piano that our main character Ronnie and her father, they used to play together all the time, and she loved the piano, and then she fell away from the piano, and now in the end she was starting to gravitate back towards the piano, and she realized a few things because of her father, and in a way she just fell in love with the piano again. And I love that concept. I overall just love this whole book. Like I said, I just think it's such a great story and a great work, and I think Nicholas Sparks really did well with this one. So I did finish this book a couple days ago. I am rating it 5 stars, and I am so happy that I crossed this off of my list because I've had it on I think a couple TBRs and I never even wanted to tackle it, and for some reason I really wanted to this month, and I hopped into it and I ended up enjoying it so much. So definitely recommend this. I feel like the last time I updated on The White Witch Doctor, I was actually around 60 or so pages into this book. I have been reading just a little bit. I'm on chapter now 30, which is page 160. We have about 115 give or take pages left of this book. My goal today, hopefully today, it may not be today, it may be tomorrow at the max, I want to finish this book. I want to be done with it because I want to hop into a couple new books. We do have I think 2 more books. I have 3 on my TBR for the month of October. I have about a week and a half to 2 weeks, so I don't know if I'm going to get to all of them, but I prefer to at least have 2 more books in this video that I actually sit down and read and talk to you guys about. And also I would prefer to finish at least 2 books before the month ends. That is my goal. I've already tackled 4 books this month. In a way, I'm gonna say like 3, since I did read probably about a third to maybe half of a book and finished it in October, but I started it in September. This book in particular, there is so many things about this book that I just find really enjoyable. It is older, and for the most part the English and stuff hasn't changed too much in the 70 something years that it has been, which is crazy to say that. In my mind, still can't believe that the 50s, and this was 1949 I guess technically, but the 50s itself is now 70 something years away, because our Pontiac chieftain, which is a 1955, is 70 years old this year. It hasn't really changed too much in literature. There are some like bigger words that I feel like if you weren't really knowledgeable or used to reading these older books, you might not know what they are. The words that are stumping me are definitely the African words. I have no clue how to pronounce them. There are some things that if they did not describe what they meant, I would definitely have to look them up and be like, what is this? Because to me it's of course a foreign language, and there's different languages in this book. It's not just one, which I find very interesting. And I think overall this is a fiction story, but maybe based on true events, or some events are true to a certain character or a person, but I don't believe the main character is alive or was real. I am really enjoying how like in a way fast-paced this read is, and I don't know if it's really got a plot to it, since for the most part we are just following our main character Ellen. However, I am enjoying reading about her. At first she was in this one spot in Africa or by the Congo, and then she kind of, after somebody kind of passed away, and you learn a lot about their relationship together, not like relationship but like friendship together. You get a lot of that together, and she is somehow 70, I do believe she said, years old, and then she ended up passing away, and so she in return takes her doctor spot, and so she moves to a different village, and she just got there I think maybe about 20 pages ago for me. And while she was first there, she's relearning a brand new language first off, and she has this guy who I think they all call them boys technically, even if they're like 40-year-old men over there, they call them boys, and they're kind of like helpers in a way. Like when she's crossing the river, they're there throwing the the boat and helping her with her luggage, you know, things like that. However, this guy in particular, I can't remember where he's actually from, but it's not from around there, and they think he has like Arabic blood in him, and it's one of those where he is just a really great character in my opinion. So helpful, and he's trying to teach her things, and at the same time, because I think he's older and she's older, and the way that, you know, over there kind of works, usually you're in like your teens when you get your first wife or so, at least in this story. So he's also like, hey, would you like to be my wife? And she's kind of like, listen, I have not thought about that with you. And he's like, it's okay, you can help me buy my second wife if you would like. His character though is really funny, and also I love their little friendship that's starting to, I'm gonna say, like blossom in a way, because I don't think it's gonna lead into anything more right at the moment. I'm just enjoying them talking and him teaching her things. And at first he was one of those characters that she was kind of afraid of him, and she judged him a little bit differently than maybe she should have, and she just thought that like in a way he was gonna kill her. But she also is taught from him how to hunt. She already used to hunt when she was back in the States, but now she became this like big giant hunter over there, where, you know, once a week they would try and go and get a hippo or try and get this animal and bring them back, and then they would sit there and eat them, and that way it's like the whole village would feast, and they would use all of the meat, and they could use the fat to try and make cakes and stuff like that. And I'm enjoying that. There are a few stories in here because the main character, she writes home once at least, if not twice, I think 2 different times. She wrote 2 different stories, and the first one was like, okay, it's very interesting, and I'm just gonna say it's very interesting. And then we have the second story, which I was like, I heard about this story and I was like, okay, this is a little bit disturbing in a little way. And as our main character was walking by, she heard this story, and then we kind of like listened in, and that is the first time that she realized she could speak this specific language, and she got real excited. And I was like, we're just gonna read the story. I was very, not necessarily fully disturbed because I've read some really bad books, but at the same time I was like not expecting this in this book. This was just out of left field. Like I was caught off guard. So it's like little things like that that have been making this book very interesting, and it's just so completely different. And I also really love it because 1, it is an older book and it's not that known, but 2, there is a movie about it, which is kind of exciting if I want to watch it, and 3, it's just like I said, it's not really known, so nobody really talks about it and nobody really has reviews about it. So I'm truly diving into this without any context and just going for it, which I used to do with books all the time, and now because of the internet I'm not really diving into books completely blind. That's my little lengthy update. I just wanted to kind of update that I did finish Nicholas Sparks' The Last Song, and I hope to finish this book today, not gonna lie. I'd like to move on to another book. I think my next book is going to be a start to a trilogy, and I am so very excited about that series. So I'm probably not going to record any today, especially not like b-roll or POV shots. I just kind of want to sit and read as much as possible, also because our son is actually sick right now, so I don't feel like recording today. But the next time I update, I will update when I finish this book, and also when we start a new book. Alright everybody, I said I would come back and revisit you guys once I finish this book, and of course I have finished The White Witch Doctor. I did rate this one 4 stars. Overall, I really enjoyed the story. I enjoyed following our main character and some of the things that she went through, how she kind of accomplished some things, and then also just the stories and the things that she learned along the way. As a whole, I felt like this was just a very interesting story, and I definitely recommend, but at the same time I know it's not maybe a book that you can probably get your hands on. I don't even think libraries might have this book, so if you can't actually get a hold of this book or any copy, even if it's digitalized, then maybe go and watch the movie. I haven't seen the movie, so I don't know if it's 100% or very similar to the actual book, but I feel like maybe watch the movie is better than not. I definitely recommend at least the book though, and I am so happy that I enjoyed this. I'm so happy I crossed this off, and I felt like the way that the story ended was a good little like conclusion to the entire collection of events that was going on during this book. Since I finished White Witch Doctor, I did go ahead and hop into the next book in this reading vlog, and this one I only read about 10 pages of, is Ender's Game. I was deciding between this book specifically and one other one. One was a start to a trilogy, and in the end I just decided to pick up this. I think this is a 5-book series. It's called the Ender Saga. Starting it, like I said, I'm only 10 pages into it, so I feel like this is going to be a more fast-paced read. I feel like it's more tailored towards the teenage to really young adult age, and also the pages, like the font, it's giving me definitely 90s because I think I have a 90s copy, but also it's just massive. Coming from what I was just reading. It's massive. I feel like I can hop into it and just read it, and it's flowing very quickly. And I don't know anything about this really, except for I kind of read a little bit on the back that apparently aliens kind of come in, I do believe is what it said. And then there is this guy who is Ender, and he is going to be a part of a military, or he's in like military training or something like that. I don't believe he's very old either. I haven't found out his age, but it seems like he's really young, like 16 I'm gonna say. They also had like monitors in the back of the neck, and he just had his taken out, but they're still observing him. And that's literally all I've read in the first 10 pages, but I'm really enjoying this, and I think I'm gonna sit for a little bit, read, and see if I can get to maybe page 50, if not close to page 100. I don't know, but I do want to get farther into this, get a decent chunk done so I can kind of learn more about the characters. And I think it's only about like a 350 page book. Yeah, it's 320 something pages, 330 pages, so it's a fairly short book, but it is start to a much larger series. I feel like 5 books isn't that bad if they're all going to be around the same size. But let's go ahead and hop into this little book. There's a part of me that has always thought that I read this book for some reason, and when I first started it again, I was like, ooh, some of these kind of seem very familiar. I think I know why. I think I did start this book, and either I just left it here or I finished off here on page 13. I haven't had see-through post-it notes. I don't know when. I don't even know where these came from. That makes total sense now. It is because I did start it once upon a time. I just never finished the book, potentially, or I never got past apparently page 12 or 13. Alright, I'm gonna do a small update because I'm thinking about going downstairs, kind of working out for a little bit. So I want to stop reading. I didn't get too far, just on page 30, which also was chapter 4. Just started this, and so I thought they were going to be around teenagers, and I think eventually, hopefully in this book, we will get there. However, apparently our main character, Ender, is 6 years old, and then after he's kind of like at this academy, I think they call it a battle school. After he goes to the battle school, he'll have, I can't remember what the guy actually said who came to his door, the general or whoever, but he said something about being 12 years old and then being 16. So in 6 years time, this will happen, and then in 10 years time, when you're done with the school, this will happen. It's weird to think that as a 6-year-old, some of the things that happen already in this book happen at his age that he's at now. However, it does kind of make sense because I'm like, okay, do remember now that I'm, you know, 25, looking back at just like 18 and 16 and stuff, I was in my mind very immature. Even if I was very mature for my age, I was still very immature. I don't know, there were some spots where I'm like, okay, just seems very, very immature for a 16-year-old. Even for like a very immature person at 16, I feel like it's just even worse. Well, it makes sense now because it's a 6-year-old. I guess we're getting that dynamic. Also, I don't want to say too much, but we have a family dynamic of a brother who in a way is like jealous and upset and says he wants to kill Ender, but then also one night is like, I'm so sorry, I love you, blah blah blah, when he thinks that Ender is sleeping. And then you have Valentine, who's kind of like weighing him down. That's his sister. She's kind of like standing up for Ender anytime that Peter, his brother, tries to like attack him and things like that, but she's also hindering him too much. Like, she's a little, nothing's really wrong with her, she's just too much. And so because of that, there are also these people who are trying to get Ender to come to the battle school. They want to separate him specifically from the sister because they just know like it'll be more beneficial, they could do more. Like, she's just in a way just hindering him, just being in his way basically. And the other thing about this book that I'm kind of enjoying a little bit of is in the start of each chapter. So this upcoming chapter is a better example. So we have 2 different text fonts. We have this font all the way down to, I think, yeah, to like right here. So this font is bold, and it's also a completely different font style. And then we go into actually Ender's. This is like his third person. We're following Ender. All of this stuff is the people that I don't know exactly who they are, but they were the ones monitoring Ender in the beginning, and they're the ones that said like, oh, his sister's just too much for him right now. We need to separate him from his sister. So I like getting this little dynamic. It's not very much. Honestly, this is probably the the lengthiest so far I've seen in the beginning of a chapter. Otherwise, it's just like a paragraph or two. But I do enjoy getting a little like behind the scenes context of what they're thinking, what their plans are, and then we kind of hop into the chapter, and then we're following Ender in like a third person POV, which I find very interesting. And as of right now, he just left his family to go to the battle school, and they instantly went up in space, like to launch. And I think he's going to be, because he is fairly smart, so I think it's going to be one of those where they're like trying to see which kids will figure out what to do before like they get instructions and stuff like that. And I feel like what I've just read, it's one of those where I think he's trying to sit down and figure out where he's at, like get his bearings in order. And in order to do that, he's also thinking like, oh, we're gonna fall out of orbit right now, or this is gonna happen, we're just gonna fall off the planet. In my mind, I feel like they're purposely doing this to see which people might figure it out before, maybe like have them slip off to where gravity takes effect, and the kids that aren't strapped down or aren't sitting down, they end up getting killed, and then that's how they kind of weed out some of the weaker people. I don't know if that's the case, but that's just what my mind went to. And if it is the case, I feel like that would be a very interesting thing to see, like, oh, this is one of those stories where you have to think logically and also critically depending on what the situation is, and try and stay alive and try and make it through your years. But the guy who came to his house, like the general or whoever, he said that I think it was anybody who passes like the first year, they always have like really high numbers of graduates and blah blah blah. Very simple, but he's just kind of emphasized like, oh, if you make it past the first year, everybody who makes it past does this. He doesn't say like, oh, we only get like 4 people every year, or we get 20 out of 30 people every year that make it past. I just kind of wanted to maybe just voice my opinion and then see if later on, if maybe I was correct, because I find it fun, especially when editing, because I'm like, oh, I was right on the mark with this one. And then other times I'm like, what was I doing? No, that's not the way that the story took. I want to go kind of update because I'll probably go downstairs and work out a little bit, and I will read a little bit, but for the most part I'll probably try and throw on the audiobook, listen to it on the treadmill, and then read on the bike. Coming on here with another update for Ender's Game. Yesterday I think I started on page like 10 and we read till 134, I do believe, and I am just now on chapter 12, which is also page 200. I only have about 120 pages left, honestly, of this book. So far my thoughts on it is it's a little bit YA, but like in the best of ways. It's very fast paced. I do enjoy like the military aspect of it, like the battle school. However, there are parts of it that I'm like, sometimes our main character is just a little too kind of like cocky to me, or like he knows he's the best, but then he decides like, oh, well, nobody can beat me. And then he thinks things out, and as he's thinking them out, he just knows that he's gonna win, or that this is gonna happen. Like he knows everything. So there's a little bit of parts that I'm like, I don't like when he acts like that. However, I do like how he's being more of a commander when it's time to be, but then if he goes around to smaller groups and helps them from his team or from his army is what it's called, he's more of like sympathetic, and he hears them out, and then he tries to teach them exactly. But then overall he is a commander, so he's trying to be a commander, trying to put that up first. That way you're building a soldier first. It's kind of like when you're raising kids, you want to be their parent first and their friend second, because you're not wanting to be their friend the entire time, because otherwise you're just not raising your kid correctly, and they're not going to turn out really great in the world, because it's just a whole different dynamic. I know that might be a little controversial, but you need to be a parent first. It's kind of like the same concept with being like a commander, or just in real life in military, like going down to BMT for at least the Air Force. You're gonna get yelled at, especially in the first couple weeks. You're gonna get yelled at for the littlest of things, and you're not gonna have many friends, and especially with the commanders, you're not gonna enjoy them. However, by the end of it, you create a family and a bond together, and you turn to kind of like respect and actually enjoy how they taught you and why they were so strict, because it molded you into a better character. And I like how he's doing that. And then there is like a little POV where we're following his sister a little bit, just like the briefest second. We followed her and I guess his brother, and then also like they're trying to get her to write to him again, and he kind of figures it out right off the bat of what he's like, okay, the enemy isn't necessarily who we're told the enemy is, it's really the people who brought me here, in a way, is what he's kind of thinking. So I'm enjoying this book. It's like fast paced, considering I'm already 200 pages into it, and I think I read, like I said, 134 pages yesterday. Well, 124 because we started on page 10, but today I haven't read too long, and I have listened to a little bit to the audiobook, probably about 30 pages worth, because I think I was around 170 pages, and then I came inside and I had to get some stuff done before we end up leaving for the day, for the night. So I did throw in the audiobook, and it's nothing too crazy. Maybe younger me would have been like, oh, that's like a 5-star series. I'm enjoying it a lot. I definitely think I will continue the series because I'm very invested into it, but I feel like so far it's just like 4 stars. A little bit better than but definitely not, oh my goodness, I love this book, I'll be ranting about this book for years to come. If I was younger, for sure, that's probably what I would have thought. Here's to potentially finishing this tomorrow, if not the next day, most likely tomorrow. For sure, if I finish it, I will come on here and update y'all and then hop into our fourth and probably final book of this video. Hello everybody, I'm here to do a last and final update on Ender's Game. I did just finish this book, and for the most part I enjoyed, I think about 85%, like truly enjoyed this book for about 85% of this book. Overall, I did go ahead and just keep with my 4-star rating, but in the beginning it was one of those that I was kind of invested into it. It was like an easy YA sci-fi, very YA. I was a little unsure about how I felt about the ages, but once Ender kind of grew up a little bit, I think he was around like 10 to maybe 12, it started getting better for me. However, there are some things that I really enjoyed, like the twist when he was in the schools or the academies, whichever you want to say, and he was playing games. I enjoyed technically how those games were. I liked the challenges he faced. They did kind of end in the same way. I liked them because it was like he was facing certain challenges in certain games, and then there was a twist about what the games actually represented, what they meant, what was real, what wasn't real type thing. I just really enjoyed that. I thought that was a really good spin on the book. And then there was at the very end, probably within like the last 20 pages or so, there was another little twist at the very end that I cannot talk about at all, but I think it's going to be more for like a future book. We might learn more about it. That last 15%, after basically he left after his final game or like evaluation at a certain academy slash school, he left, and I just felt like it was a little boring. There were some things that were going on that I just didn't enjoy as much.
Are you vegan?
Yeah. A little small interruption for my husband, but that's okay. The last 15% or so, I wasn't as invested in. I felt like it was a little slow. I didn't really enjoy like what we were kind of reading about with our main character. However, I understood like his side, and I think it kind of led up to where that twist is in the last 20 pages. It just wasn't necessarily my favorite. It's one of those that, I don't know, I just wasn't really overall happy with it. However, like I said, I did rate this 4 stars. I would recommend this. I would just recommend it more for the younger audience and not so much if you're like in your 20s. Definitely like teens or maybe even middle school, elementary school would be a really great time if you could read this book, and potentially with the rest of the series. With me finishing Ender's Game, we have just under a week. We have exactly 6 days left of October, and I know for a fact I want to get one more book done, so I am going to go ahead and hop into The Cruel Prince. This is another book on my TBR and also on my 25 and 25 list. I think that's actually what this video is about. I've just not really been recording too much, so I kind of forgot. However, I'm going to hop into this. It might be tonight I might start it, or I might start it another day, because we are actually getting ready to head to the drag strip, and my husband and I are both racing tonight. It is the final drag strip night. They also have, before they open the drag strip, a little trunk or treat for the kids, and then tomorrow the drag strip has a car show. So this weekend's a little bit packed revolving around the drag strip, but eventually I want to kind of start this and maybe see how far I can get into it. I don't know when I'm going to update, but it would be kind of nice if, like, let's say I got knocked out really early in eliminations for bracket racing today, I could just sit, watch my husband, and then when we're just sitting waiting in between, if we're not watching other people, I could just sit and read. So that is a potential. I will be taking it. I'm not going to promise anything. Probably won't record because for the most part I might try and do an actual video for the drag strip here on my channel. But I just wanted to go ahead and introduce and say that we are reading this. I think this is like 330 pages, and I've heard amazing things about this series, about this world, and also this author, but I haven't read a single book from this author just yet. Also, I bought this a year ago for my birthday, so I feel like it's kind of fitting because I've had it on my shelves for exactly a year and some odd weeks or days now. Hello everybody, I want to do my first update on The Cruel Prince, tell you how far I've gotten into this, and also kind of my first thoughts. I'm actually on page 172, which is just after the start of chapter 17. I think this morning I left off around 120, or I started the day around 120 something pages. So I read about 100 yesterday. Today, I think when I first started recording, I was around 130 or 140. So I've read not quite 100 just yet, but I'd say about at least 50 or so pages since I've been up, and and I do hope to at least get to page 2. I want to try and get to page like 250 in all honesty, but if I can get to at least just 200, I'll be really happy. So far the book is somewhat interesting. I've never read a fairy type book. I've never read a world like this, so it's very interesting. It's not that I'm having a really hard time with it. I'm just kind of understanding or trying to understand all of it. It is, however, very fast paced for the most part. I feel like I can easily read about 20 to 50 pages and it doesn't take me as long as I feel like it should. I really don't have too much that I'm really either interested in or not interested in. I'm kind of like, it's okay. I think the pacing is helping, but right now I'm just not as invested. I'm not sure if there is going to be a true love interest. I feel like there is, and there is technically somebody, but I don't trust right now the person that she is necessarily with. And then there is a certain somebody who, like, he's a bad character, but then you see this bad thing that happens to him and you kind of feel like, oh, maybe he's a bad character because he has these bad things happen to him, but maybe there's some good in him. But I don't like the whole, I'm gonna say, like, friend group and the whole situations. I don't like, I'm very confused right now. Not confused, I'm very unsure of how I feel about like the plot, and then you have like the minor plots and also just events that happen in this book, and I'm not really sure if it's like, is it one of those that, you know, by book 2 or the end of this book I'm gonna totally enjoy and I'm gonna see how it made so much sense and it was very relevant. If that's the case, then I will absolutely love it. But for right now, for whatever reason, I'm just not fully invested into it. Like, it is very interesting, but I'm learning a lot about the world, and I feel like compared to how everybody else reviewed this series and especially this world, I feel like I should love it a lot more than I am. And I don't know, maybe it's just one of those that I maybe should have picked a different book instead of this book. Maybe it wasn't my time fully to read this, but I'm hoping that I'll get more into it, and then by the end of this reading vlog, or even by the end of this book, if not hopefully the next book, I will absolutely love it and enjoy it and be obsessed with it like everybody else is. But right now I'm just kind of like, oh, it's a book I read. I don't really have much thought. I'm kind of indifferent about it. I don't hate it. I don't absolutely love it. I'm just kind of down the middle, like, yeah, it has good pacing. That's pretty much my only positive about it, which right now isn't that good, I guess, but it also isn't that bad because I don't really have too much negatives. That is my almost halfway update. I'm almost halfway through the book. I think I have only 10 pages left. I think 185 is basically the halfway point because I think it's only 370 pages. I'm fairly close to the middle and I have to go run and do a couple errands, so I'm gonna take a break on reading this, and maybe when I get back I can try and find maybe an audiobook somewhere. I know I don't have one on Libby just yet, but I was thinking about doing some stuff around the house and maybe throwing on an audiobook. So if I can find one, I will definitely throw it on and see if we can get closer to that 250 mark, and then definitely tonight I'll probably read just maybe 10 to 30 pages, not too much, but I want to definitely finish this book. I would prefer tomorrow because tomorrow's the 30th, and I would like to honestly start our final book on my TBR on the 30th, if not on the 31st. Like, I'd like to start it, and honestly I might just continue this vlog until the 31st on Friday. I just wanted to come on here and kind of do an update. I am back with a final update for actually The Cruel Prince, and I just finished this, I think maybe like 20-30 minutes ago. It hasn't been very long, however, I just kind of want to go over my thoughts because today I think I started with 220 pages, give or take. I think it was basically about 100 pages is what I read yesterday as well, and we were around 220 if not 230, and I read all the way till 370. I actually listened to probably the majority of my reading today actually on like a Spotify audiobook that I could find while I deep cleaned the entire house and deep cleaned the bathrooms because I was not trying to read this, and I also didn't want to physically be touching my phone while deep cleaning and bleaching the entire bathroom. So that's all I've done today for the most part, and then I think I finished a little bit of more so the epilogue by myself. I don't really know how I truly feel about this book. It's one of those that I have no clue what rating I really want to give it. I did not hate it, but I also didn't absolutely love it, and normally I feel like most of my 3 stars are books that I for the most part could be considered 4 stars for other people. Like, I just enjoy 3 stars as much as I sometimes do 4 stars. 3 stars to 5 stars, they're all great books normally, very normally. However, if I rate a book, and I think I've only rated a couple books, especially this year, 2 stars, most of the time if I'm gonna rate it 2 stars or 2.5 stars, it's usually a really bad book. Like, I really hated it. If not, it's a book that maybe I DNF'd, but I don't even hardly count my DNFs, to be honest. I don't even write them down, then I finish them. Technically I rated a 3 stars, but when I think about my 3 stars, I feel like this one is definitely like the bottom of the barrel 3 stars. It's definitely not a 2 star. I feel like that's kind of disrespectful if I rated it 2 stars because there are parts that I really enjoyed. I really enjoyed the prologue. I loved when we first jumped into the story. I felt like that had a lot of good like strength, and I felt like the book would have been really great if we kept with that, which I'm not saying we deferred too much from it. After the prologue all the way to maybe around 70%, I just wasn't invested. And I think when I came on here and talked to you guys, I kind of said like, oh, I hope it gets better, I hope it picks up, I hope I do enjoy it, and it did after or around that 70% mark. I feel like the ending, there was enough twists and turns that I actually really enjoyed the last section of this book. However, I also wasn't so invested into this book, besides one thing that I can't talk about anything that I really enjoyed because they're all relative to this book and spoilers, but there is one in particular that I think I mentioned about a certain character with our main character, and I just said like, I'm not gonna spoil it, but what happened at the end of this book, I kind of seen it coming. That was the only thing that I really predicted. Everything else, I was just reading. I wasn't really trying to predict anything. I wasn't thinking about this book too much. I was just there reading, almost like when you get up, go to work, come home, eat some supper, go to bed, get up, go to work. I was just kind of going through the motions of reading this book until I finished it. It's why I don't know what I honestly wanted to rate it in the beginning. That's one reason, because of the ending and also the beginning of this book. I did enjoy it enough that it is a 3-star, and I definitely don't think it would have been a 2-star, but I'm very hopeful that book 2 or even book 3 will be so much better than this book. For some reason, I think it just kind of fell a little flat for me. I think also with this book, the introduction to the world, I'm definitely not, unless it's just because of this book, I'm not a more fairy tale, and when I say fairy tale, I mean more of like the fairies and some people being, I think, foxes and this whole magic realm, but they're also like random animals. I'm not a big fan. Maybe it's just how either Holly Black described it, her world, or maybe it's just the timing, or just in general this series. Maybe there is a series out there that I might really enjoy, but for the most part, it's one of those fantasy worlds that I don't think I personally would really enjoy. When I'm dropping into fantasy, I definitely like the castles, I definitely like the random academies or like the made up worlds, but not so much, I guess, unrealistic. Like my fantasies, I guess, could happen if 100 years ago, or maybe 500 years ago, or maybe a couple hundred in the future. I think I also was hoping a little bit better just because I feel like I've seen so many people rave about this world in general and also just this book, but I'm not necessarily too disappointed. I'm just a little bit disappointed because I didn't like it as much, and it's very rare for me, I feel like, to not enjoy a book. That's all I really wanted to update. I did rate this 3 stars. With that out of the way, we have today and also tomorrow. Tomorrow's Halloween, so we have technically 2 days that I could get into another book. However, I do want to introduce it because I think this would be a really cool book to at least put somewhat into a vlog. If I can get to like 100 pages maybe today, and by, I don't know, with Halloween going on, maybe 200 pages by tomorrow, I would have a very good like basis for this book. I'm going into my final book on my TBR, which is called Cuckoo Land. I think also people say Cuckoo Land. Honestly, have just been saying Cuckoo Land until I was looking this book up to kind of get not so much hype, but in a way like hype for this book, because I wasn't feeling The Cruel Prince as much and I was kind of a little discouraged, and I don't want to go into a slump at all. However, I have heard about this book that you might be very confused up until around like the 60% mark. It's almost like the, where is this book going? How is this person, this timeline going to relate with 100 years from now or 20 years from now in this timeline? Everything that I've ever seen so far from this, unless it's just the popular videos, is everybody absolutely enjoys this book. They have been recommended this book. It ends up being one of their top ones throughout the year, and also it's one of those that around that 60% mark, everything starts to click or make sense, and then it just becomes like something that when you finish the book you have to sit there, and I think a couple of people called it like the chest clutching type book, where you finish it and you just kind of sit there with it in your arms, like rethinking everything that you read, and also just thinking about how you feel, because apparently with Anthony Dewar, which I have read, it's actually behind me, I think right here, All the Light We Cannot See, and I loved that book. It was like a 5-star, one of my top books last year, and that's why I picked up this book, because I seen it in the back of All the Light We Cannot See. This book apparently, just like that book, is going to bring heartbreak and so much emotion, so I think this is a very exciting book to start, but I'm a little intimidated because everybody said it's very like slow and you're uneasy or unsure about how things are going to click, and then it gets really good, but you have to read a lot of it to get to that point. The number one thing I keep hearing is just keep pushing through, so I'm very interested in that. I feel like if I can get into it really early, maybe I won't have to push through, maybe I'll just absolutely love it, and I don't want to hype myself up, and I don't want to assume it's going to be 5 stars judging by the cover and how much I loved All the Light We Cannot See. What if it's actually a 5-star read? What if I enjoy it so much? And also, I really like how the inside looks. It's not too crazy, not too long of chapters, and then you also have different parts. I guess this is where like different timelines come in, because there's one that said Constantinople. This one says a public library, a Lakeport public library in February of 2020. I'm going to start Cloud Cuckoo Land, and I'm honestly so excited. So without further ado, let's go ahead and see how much we can get into this book. real quick before I go to bed and finish out the night, I kind of want to do like a small update on Cloud Cuckoo Land. However, before I get into that, I do want to say about The Cruel Prince. I kind of posted on Fable a picture that I said I finished it, and I just kind of asked like, oh, does anybody else feel the same way, where the first book was okay and then pretty much like does it get better with each book. And 3 people that I know of have commented on that, and 2 out of the 3 people said that they felt pretty much like the same way, where book 1 was just kind of it was intriguing to a point but not really like anything happening for them. However, one person said that they absolutely enjoyed the first book. All 3 of them said that the next 2 books in the series get really good, especially with forming tighter relationships and like friend group, I'm gonna say, and then also just like the world becomes better. So apparently what I've taken from that is pretty much the first book is like a setup for introductory and everything like that into the world, and then at the end of the book you kind of get more of like the overall plot that starts to build up, and then in the second and the third book you get more of that plot and more of what like I'm really looking for in that book. So that gives me hope for in the future whenever I dive into the second book and potentially the third book. But I just wanted to come on here, kind of update with that, and then like I said, update about this book. First off, this is how I felt, or how I wanted to feel when I first got into The Cruel Prince. This is the feeling that I was hoping I would get. I am, I think, just like 67 pages in. We are on Xena. We're back into actually the 40s this time, but we're back in Idaho, and right now I am enjoying this book so much. It doesn't matter if there's not so much plot right now. Just reading about these characters, each one, I think there's 4 different ones. I guess technically there's 5. You get in the prologue a girl named Constance, and she's very far in the future, or in the future, and but she's also in like a vault or something like that, and you only get a little bit in the prologue, and then that's it so far from her. But all of these characters, they have such interesting stories, and when we're following them, there's certain things that happen to each one that I'm just like, when we're in one point of view, I just keep wanting to go back to another one, but as soon as we end that point of view, I'm like, wait a minute, I wish we could stay in this point of view. Like, I'm just very intrigued. So we also have 2 people from, I'm gonna say, more of the past, like in the 1400s in Constantinople and around there, and then I think 2 different people we're following from more of the future, and then like I said, 1 girl more in the future, which is Constance. Also, Constantinople, side note, every time I hear that I just think of Assassin's Creed. If I know how to say these names correctly, we do have Anna, and then I'm gonna say Omir. Both of them are in the 1400s. Anna's in Constantinople, and she's actually with her sister. They're basically like foster kids in a way, but they're living in not necessarily a nunnery or an abbey, something under the sky, and they have to sew clothes, where Anna's not really good at that. Her sister Marie is really good, and she's basically the reason that they're still there. They're basically paying for their stay or just to live there. And during that same time, you have this boy who is relatively close, I do believe, to Constantinople, if not along there, and I'm sure their little paths will cross. But Omir, he was born with a cleft palate, and right now his little story about like death and everybody saying he's a demon, it's something that just, I don't know, it took me by surprise, but then with given the time period, it makes total sense. And also because he has 2 big giant ox who are born, or oxen who are born, and they are like the strongest and the biggest that anybody's ever seen. And so then it becomes like, oh, well, after so many people in your family died and you were a demon child, now all of a sudden you're using your magic to have all this and have all these crops grow and build all this yield for you guys to eat next year. And then we just finished out and got to the point where I think they were going to take his oxen to the actual city and then use them for like fighting or plowing. I don't know, there's something going down, but I don't have all the information on that. And then in the actual fast forward, we have Seymour and then Xena, or Zeno, and that is in the Idaho one. You have Seymour, who actually, and it's not a bad thing because it's on the back of the book, so it's not a spoiler, but he's basically trying to plant a bomb in this library, and so we're kind of following him, not very much, I think just 2 different POVs with him, but he's trying to plant a bomb and then blow up the entire library. And at the same time, Zeno and all these, I think like kids, little kids, if not like, I'm picturing around kindergarten to like 4th grade, so elementary school kids are inside this library and they're like reenacting this play. That's so far the only thing that is connecting all of these characters together is Cloud Cuckoo Land. It is a story or a world that was created by this one guy that we get in the very beginning, who I don't even know if I can say honestly his name. I guess he was really dumb, or people just called him like dumb, dim-witted, things like that. He believed that there was this world that he could just fly to. If he was turned into a bird, he could get to it. It's like a city in the clouds, and that's what Cloud Cuckoo Land is. And I don't know, so far it is the only thing that everybody, every POV has talked about. It is something that is like combining or involving all of them. They stumbled across the story, they heard it on their way home, or even like at the library where they're reenacting the play. So it's really interesting to see what all is going on and how so far these stories are connected. And I don't know, I'm just very intrigued with each character, and I'm so happy I started this book. I'm not gonna lie. Almost 70 pages into it. I didn't get to 100. I might might read a little bit more, probably not tonight, but honestly, not really picking it up until just maybe an hour and a half ago. I feel like that's pretty decent. Hello everybody, I want to do a final update on all the books, just wrap up this entire video. On the 31st, we were just non-stop busy. Every week, once a week, we kind of get up, we go to the library, do something for my son until he gets into actual school, just to kind of get out and socialize with other little kids. So we got up, went to the library, then went to McDonald's. As soon as we got home, me and my son, we turned around, we kind of hot-tailed it, went and bought him shoes because he needed new tennis shoes, and also he needed new boots because he's grown out of all of them, and we didn't really have shoes or good enough shoes for him to walk around for Halloween, so we went out, bought a couple new pairs. Great. By the time we got home, we had to then turn and burn after letting Lily out, go up to my mother-in-law's, and then get ready for Halloween. Basically, we're non-stop running all day long. I didn't read anything hardly, except for when I first woke up before the library. It might have been only a couple pages, and then also maybe like 4 pages literally when we were at Halloween at somebody else's house with Cloud Cuckoo Land. I don't remember when I updated like what page I was actually on, but I am on page 108. So we did get at least 100 pages into it, because for the most part I wanted to hit 100 on that first day, and then maybe on Halloween 200. I didn't get to 200. However, at least I got to 100, and there's not much to update. I feel like I absolutely love this book. Like, I don't know if I even updated before, but I'm not gonna try and go too much into it because I have not read it. I think I read like 1 page yesterday, so I haven't really got into it, and it is the 2nd of November. So after I finish editing this long video, I am going to be trying to kind of clean the house and then trying to hop into this and read, and this will just be something that I try and finish in November, and also probably something that might be in a reading vlog, another one, but otherwise I'm not gonna prioritize filming and talking about it. In this reading vlog, however, I don't believe that I got to the host. I don't think I talked about the host. I think I started this reading vlog, technically, we were reading The White Witch Doctor, I think was the first book that I introduced. And if you guys remember, I did end up loving this book. I did rate it 4 stars. It was a fairly decent read, and I'm very happy that I accomplished this book, especially since it will stay on my shelf forever. At least that's what I have planned, and probably I will be collecting eventually more older books and reading them as I go. I think I'm gonna put again on my 26 and 2026 2 older style books. So be on the lookout for those ones, because this book and the other book I read this year was really good. At the same time that we kind of read The White Witch Doctor, I listened to a lot of The Last Song, and if you guys remember, I love this. This was one of my top Nicholas Sparks books now. I love the movie, love the book. This was 5 stars. Honestly, I do recommend this, as well as some other books from him. And then after The White Witch Doctor and The Last Song, I did go ahead and hop into Ender's Game, and I did enjoy this. It was a little bit different, especially in the beginning, because I wasn't expecting them to be so young at 6 years old, and then like I think growing up to at the end around 12-ish. I rated this one 4 stars as well. I would like to continue the series eventually. I just also have tried finding a bundle series, but every time I look at those on like Amazon, there's apparently one book that's been missing, or they come pre-damaged. Probably gonna go out to Half Price Books or other places and try and thrift or find the other books next in the series, and specifically in this copy, try and stick with this copy, or at least this size. I don't care too much about how these covers look, but I do want to continue the series, and this might be something that I might try and finish next year. And then my 4th and final book that we at least accomplished, but 5th book in this video that I'm going to talk about, is The Cruel Prince. This book, I have heard lots of things about how, you know, you're supposed to kind of read this, and this is like the setting up. So I only rated this 3 stars, and I was just kind of indifferent about it. I didn't hate it, but I just didn't love it. I don't really have too many doubts. I'm more optimistic about the 2nd book and potentially the 3rd book, depending on how the 2nd book goes. Definitely, it just was not what I wanted, but it wasn't bad, if that makes sense. This could be a series that in the long run, if I don't end up liking the 2nd or the 3rd book, I might just get rid of it. But at least I did accomplish this, and at least I did read this. These are the books that I tackled either somewhat or completely finished in this reading vlog, and I feel like I had a really decent time. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you guys all enjoyed this video. Be sure to stay tuned for any other reading vlogs here on my channel. I do have a reading vlog I'm planning to tackle in the month of November to try and finish out my 25 and 2025 list. So if you're curious, go ahead and subscribe. Stay in touch with my YouTube community. I hope to see you in another video here on my channel, and as always, God bless.